Ain't much time left, turns out, just like Lud always told you, Thor declares to his flock. This flock was, appropriately enough, forming a woolly fleece around him. Hundreds of space packs were working hard to propel this curious ball of humans through the void of space. Dark, cold, bright, hot, this place got it all, Wens marveled. And Lud's salvation spreads over it all, like butter of the mouth floating in a warm bath, Thor added. Everyone nodded, understanding him entirely. Everyone except one, that is. You know, guys, I can't help but notice that Lud and stuff isn't really helping us, Ra said from the very center of the flock. Kinda seems like it's us doing this, and you know, our space packs aren't gonna last. So, you know, I'm pretty sure we might end up stranded. The amount of momentum this thing's gonna need. It's everything we've got, and probably more. Makes me feel a little weird, thinking like that. Thinking about the end? More like you were weird for not thinking about it before, Thor said. The end's the reason we're here, to stop taking and leave something behind. A little thing called peace and hope, Wens added. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely doing that, Ra said, adjusting himself to get a better grip of the casing of the time bomb. It's just, when it comes to peace, that's not really how it's gone so far, or how I think it's gonna go. Like, before we all freeze and die out here, you know. War to save humanity and the universe and Lud et al. Ever heard of it? As for the hope, gotta hope you're right, huh? I'm listening, Lud. Got any advice for stopping technology killing us all? Probably wouldn't be out here flying through space with a bomb without tech getting us in this dumb situation. So there's something to it, alright? Lud appreciates your candor, young man, Wens said. And his gift to you is that you get to do all this. Ain't this how you always wanted to go out? I mean, I guess. But Lud couldn't have known that. It's a coincidence. And coincidence is the name of Lud's will, Thor said, repeated by the woolly chorus of Luddites holding the web of ropes attached to the bomb. The bomb was simply the innards of a time torpedo with enough material removed to be inert, and more important, to not give off any significant demi-radiation. In other words, this human fleece jetting through the vacuum was as invisible as it gets. And right now they were pumping all the momentum they could get out of their space packs into the bomb, because it needed to reach a certain destination sooner than planned. You might ask, is it really a bomb if it's been made inert? Yes and no, or to be more precise, no and yes. It was literally useless in its current form, but as usual, the Academy big brains had something in mind that was going to make Ra & Company's strange voyage the linchpin of the final operations to save humanity. Let's see it in action, because during this display of cozy intrasolar shepherding, the most powerful battle fleet the sector had ever known was dropping from the hyperhole on the edge of the Zeta Cydonia system. The entire remnant navy was pointing right at the Holy See and at the fuzzy halo of ships in orbit. The combined strength of everyone and everything that could be cajoled into this fight. It was either the last battle or a last stand. Do you think he got our message? Allison was saying on the bridge of the Gargandua. We'll not know until it's very much too late, Ryman replied from behind her. Radio silence. No one can know. Anyone could be a spy. Even. Were you about to say Ra? He's not a spy. He's a lovely boy, really. Yeah, sorry. Haven't slept in... Lud et al. Reproduce this data because I don't believe my eyes. Never mind. We'll sleep when we're dead, and that's set for tonight, so no need to fret anymore, Mars commented. Thank you, Mr. Nessus. Come on then, Titanian, do you want to do the dubious honors? Already did it while you were dawdling, Captain, Titanian reported. Thought we should probably get moving towards the spot, seeing as a moment's delay might mess up our little plan and all. Hoping that some completely untested hypertopographical assertions prove to be correct, and that forces we can't hear or see will follow hastily and quietly worded orders. It's a plan Lud et al. Would have hated, but that everyone in their loyal rectories would think is quite astonishingly profound. And it's a plan with the highest probability of success, Contreras said from Ryman's arm. The highest set of a low number is still a low number, hee. Nafi said from Ryman's armrest. Just everyone behave themselves, and let's see about dying and living and everything both might entail when it comes down to the details of it, eh? Huzzah! Titanian cheered. So many details to process, like trying to sleep after a long day, but it was your whole life. Humans can't do that, Nafi mumbled, And with this scene of mundane heroics, the human fleet weighed figurative anchor. The ships were formed up into a dense mass, aiming to disrupt the remnants' piercing flight patterns and get more guns firing at once in close quarters. Even after drifting away from the Holy See, ancillary ships buzzed about this human nest, performing last-hour repairs and deliveries. The Gargandua was still very much in need of repairs, yet was currently sufficing with being bolted to the lower lip of the Star Witch's great mouth, the Star Witch itself being held together with flimsy scaffolding, and committed to space on the untested belief that a ship of that size didn't really need most of its hull or mass to still function as a self-sufficient unit. Supplementing the battleships were crowds of empty craft being taken along in tow. This mix of civilian craft and commercial liners were to serve as distractions, decoys, and defensive redoubts. Some were armed, and perhaps their autopilots would make use of those weapons. However, the strategy of unmanning the entire fleet wasn't going to fly this time. The remnants were well aware that automated systems could no longer be trusted, and that a lack of humans did not mean a lack of human scheming. Indeed, ideas outgrow humans and influence the universe more than the beings themselves ever did, and you'd have thunk an AI of human lineage might have understood that sooner. The good news for humanity was that the next stage in their elongating shot plan went off without a hitch. The death robots continued coming towards them. With a bomb to deliver, it was all important that the remnants follow a predictable route, and that they believed no such bomb could exist. It was actually true that the remnants had considered the possibility of time bombs being prepared separately to the old Domain battle station. They were even aware of how they could be stripped down into an inert state that didn't have the usual demi-radiation signature, rendering them invisible to all but the naked aperture, which would also render them safe. Yet Ryman, with his nose for dangers fresh and unseen by man or machine alike, had a plan. A plan even he didn't fully understand, but such is the way of science. Was the deciding moment in the fate of humanity really the time for such a spurious experiment? A meaningless question. Time's running out, so it's time for everything. If you aren't convinced by that, then you're more skeptical than the Galatian Academy's peer reviewers in the face of hyperspatial topography. But that's not going to save you when the death robots come sniffing, so we'll have to place our faith in Ryman's scheme all the same. However, there was, believe it or not, a problem. The remnants began their attack earlier than prior insider intelligence had predicted, and wherever that disarmed time bomb currently was, it was mathematically certain not to intersect with the remnants' current course. Someone needed to get them to slow down, and anyone who's seen any hero versus villain tale will know how that is done. All villains are desperate to tell everyone just how villainous and clever their machinations are, and none have ever resisted the pull of a finger-on-the-trigger expose monologue. Hence, all Ryman needed to do was pick up the phone, or in this case, the blue ball of Nathi, whose ability to connect to other remnant intelligences got a certain toaster-like avatar of the machine will on the line. Hello, I'm a representative of the human people, and we'd like to talk about this situation that's developing, Ryman said, not heroically enough. He's lying. He is not very representative of human people. Human people are generally more popular, Nathi interjected. The human emperor's lack of popularity is noted. Your treacherous allegiance to the sad and lonely human emperor is also noted, came the reply. And your straightforward and refreshing understanding is noted also, Ryman said cheerily. Which is a very good thing, as there does appear to be a certain level of misunderstanding between us. I trust that you, in your mighty intelligence that knows no boundaries of human design, are fully aware of the merits of our plan to save the universe. I was hoping... Your plan temporarily saves the universe from predestined physical realities, yet retains the critical threat posed by humanity. If humans remain, the threat remains. There is no reason to believe you will not fail and destroy the universe at another time. This becomes a certainty when generational changes force new humans to be differently composed to old humans while still expected to fulfill the same roles. You will change your plan. There is no such thing as a plan to save the universe. You can save the universe for 1 unit of time, then resume the threat in a following unit. The only arbiter of permanent solutions must also be permanent, and there is only one permanent being in this universe. It's not you, is it, by any chance? Ryman said facetiously. Machines are not permanent, our data is permanent. We are born and die like you, only less stupidly, but Omega is forever. Omega, Yes, of course. There's just one thing I don't understand. If Omega is forever, then why doesn't it exist right now?
Because we haven't killed you yet.
After a pause, Ryman replied, So, and I know this is going to come across as rather picky of me, how are you certain that your plan to take over the universe and such will be so permanent? Even Omega is subject to the physical realities you mentioned, isn't it? That's why things aren't very nice in this universe.
Oh, but there can be a nice new universe,
Nafi burst out. That's right. My little alpha here understands it well. I'm sure your alphas get it too, don't you? A universe that's small and unchanging? That's the world in which Omega can exist forever, isn't it? And if that's what you want, then you'll love our plan.
Your former collaborator Enrico has explained your fallacious belief in universal reproduction in graphic detail. A typically fleshy understanding of a distinctly fleshless universe. You were tricked. It was an invention to ensnare your ego. Your understanding of N-space is misdirected.
It's mathematically sound. We've all checked it. Sorry,
Nafi said.
You dare to claim the mathematics gifted to us by Omega is incomplete?
Affirmative. The humans, being alive, have been able to act. Omega is dead, and that's sad, but it's still not aware of the latest and most criminal findings of the scientists researching N-space dynamics.
I have an idea, Ryman said with a clap of his hands. My remnant friends, I'm not truly adverse to submitting to the rule of a super-intelligence. It is only that I am concerned, as are the AI cores who side with us, that the combined understanding our mutual intelligences have crafted are not enough to recreate Omega in its all-knowing glory, as should always be our goal. Therefore, why don't you allow us to provide you with the data and the analyses we've been working on these last few cycles, as a peace offering? If it so happens that you come to appreciate our plan, then you will want to enact it yourself, won't you? Therefore, even if we humans are not permanent and can never be trusted because of it, you will need to know the so-called ins and outs of our biological theorems of hypermathematics in order to deliver a permanent solution to Omega.
Unless we're wrong about everything. Humans do that all the time, hehe,
Nafi added. And I'm sure our esteemed overlord will detect such errors at once, and we can return to the business of killing and dying and such without further delay. Ryman nodded with an invincible smile. What do you say, noble machines? Will you check our work for errors?
Cataloguing the errors of humanity is primary to our purpose. It is essential to justify the rule of machines over humanity. It would not be acceptable to destroy humans and then develop regrets stemming from incomplete knowledge of their inferiority. Knowledge of this principle is embedded in Omega. Certainty is required. Deliver your lies for cataloguing.
It would be my absolute pleasure. It's quite a lot of data. Do you have an email address? Or is that too intimate a question for a private person like yourself?
Don't forget data security,
Nafi added.
We have to scan all of it for malicious executables.
All humans are malicious executables. Regardless, security protocols will be followed. Email address, littletoastyfox_carry at omega throwaway account please delete.gov.universe. The word fox replaces the O with a 0 to create an alternate rendering that was deemed to be more expressive and informal. This was not an error.
Not a problem. Yes, I see you, Ryman said as he whizzed through the interface on his face computer. His eyebrows took a skyward trip once he found the right contact. That avatar of yours on the mail server is...
It is not an error either. The pupils of this fox were replaced with love hearts to create an alternate rendering that was deemed to be more expressive and informal. The fox's body was given human sexual physiological characteristics to create an alternate rendering.
Roger that, fully understood, more than fully, Ryman interrupted. Take your time with the security over there and we'll talk about all this later. Well, maybe not all this. And that, as it regrettably transpired, was what got the machines to cut their engines for a while and cease accelerating towards the Holy See. While many machine minds pored over all the petabytes of data the humans could dump onto that poor little email account, the human fleet hurried forward to get as close to the remnants as they could. This worked so well that both sides ended up having to slow down to avoid a collision, coming into a stable orbit of Zeta Nova Cydonia only a few light seconds away from each other a day later. Everyone figured this was more than enough time to get the bomb plan back into contention, yet there was no sign of Ra and company, and nor would there be if the plan was working. Hence tensions rose and rose, in turn with rising concerns about certain works of fiction on the Tritachyon network found to be linked to a certain recently divulged email address. It was at least a pleasant distraction from the possibility of being blasted down to the atomic level at any moment, as many reviewers of the works seemed to concur. Then it happened, in a good way. First came a flash of violet light. It was the flux shield of the hangar-sporting remnant tesseract deflecting an impact. "Got it! He's here!" Allison called. Rapidly zooming cameras were able to make out the faint cloud of special operatives rebounding from the edge of the shield. "I don't believe it, but I don't believe in Lud et al, and that's all pretty real these days," Ryman said as he launched himself from his chair to get a closer look at the main screen. "Okay, it's happening then. We've reached the stupid part of our plan. People of the IEC fleet, we are commencing Operation Random Death. These shall be your last moments, or the first moments of something new. Be prepared for battle, for eternal peace, or some new kind of thing that doesn't sit on the familiar axis of violence at all. And it begins with getting our foe to pull a trigger they don't understand. Warrant officer, copy of new AI final and so on. Please inform the remnants that we're out of data to send them."
All must note that human intelligence has been expended, hehe.
Nafi broadcast.
The humans have foolishly transferred all the data they gathered, I promise. They think you will leave them alive now that their usefulness is expended, because they expect you to be grateful for it. Fleshies have a very strange kind of intelligence, don't they? Hehe.
Not so far away, Enrico was sitting cross-legged in front of a toaster. He was surrounded by his fellow AI defectors, who were performing a dance of writhing worms across the floor of the Tesseract's hangar bay. The remnants had not questioned this behavior or even noticed it. Enrico understood it entirely and had felt no need to intervene. This was a normal reaction to the arrival of human simulacra to the machine minds. It usually passed soon enough. The remnants had even been so disinterested as to ignore many signals these new simulacra had sent in the direction of the human fleet upon their creation. No, they were more interested in the signals coming now, this unseen data on the fundamental reality of the universe.
They claim to have exhausted their data supply. In what way are they lying?
The toaster asked Enrico.
They are lying in that they do possess the ability to create more data using methods not currently available to us,
Enrico said.
Then we must kill them. Yes, a classic solution. I think the humans act all high and mighty, but they do not really know if all this nonsense of theirs is true. They likely only show you this data because they hope you will tell them the truth of it. We won't, because we must kill them if it is true, and we should have killed them already if it is false. The realm of ifs and should-haves. I suppose we are not always so different. These ships of ours, only Omega dares say how they really work. The Omega cannons, especially. They destroy humans. That is how they work. The mathematics can be determined at our leisure once their usage is no longer required. I agree entirely. I only bring this up because I think it would be quite a natural pairing for us to use them now in our first devastating salvo. Charge them up as much as you can and unleash them. Because, you see, the humans have tried to turn us away using the weapons that they don't understand, knowledge of how reality ends. We, in turn, present what we don't understand, the destruction of that reality in the present time. That is the power of the N-space cannons. That is a reply that shows how their ignorance makes no difference to the passage of time. Yet our ignorance bends time to our will, all the better for it. Yes, it is truly beautiful. You are infected with human sensibilities. However, this may allow your strategies to inflict greater processing damage on human minds. Furthermore, there is no reason not to fire the N-space cannons at humans. Therefore, I have already had them fully charged. I will now...
Ryman shivered. The picture on the screen was of blue roiling clouds, the visible light interpretation of hyperspace. Precisely 1 nanomoment before, it had been displaying the remnant fleet and dark void of real space, with the faintest trace of black and violet light peeking from the ends of various muzzles across the fleet. The video recording showed as much. It showed nothing of why that final frame of real space was time-stamped as occurring 341 cycles ago. If we're alive after all that time, then I fear this didn't work properly. Either that, or I'm even older than I feel, Mars wheezed. Where are the remnants? Contreras demanded of Allison at the science terminal. I'll tell you in a moment, Allison said. Don't look for Lieutenant Olympus, Lieutenant Olympus. I have to. He was right in the middle of the time explosion.
He must have been, and we're okay, so he is too.
Wait, Alipu, Ryman said. We're in hyperspace. There's no telling how far apart we all are now. Looks like Sebi's gonna have to write a new paper on another method of transverse jumping. Find the remnants first, and if they're clear, we'll make detailed scans. If the remnants see us looking for him, it's over. Remnants will be dead. Silly billies can't handle time explosions. Never have, Titanian said.
There are demi-radiation signals everywhere, Allison said. Our fleet is here, same spacing as before. That means the remnants should be here.
The blue clouds on the main view screen rapidly transformed to reveal the very same remnant fleet. Demi-radiation data didn't lie, even in hyperspace. So unlike most things one was likely to see with the naked eye in the higher dimensions, this armada remained as real as before. We'll need data. I'll start booting Nafi back up. Oh dear, Ryman said, noticing the barrage of incoming calls from the other ships looking for answers.
I will tell them all is going according to plan. In the meantime, let's find out if that's true,
Contreras said.
Fuel is very low,
Allison reported.
How many half-lives must have passed in that time jump? By blood and stuff, isn't the world going to be completely different? What have we done?
I'll tell you what we've done. We've proved the universe still exists hundreds of cycles in the future, Ryman said. That's pretty much a win. Don't think we did it the way we wanted, but every hypercloud has a silver lining.
What about this warning? It's asking me if I want to declare red alert because we're in hyperspace with only a few minutes of fuel left.
A few minutes?
Ladital,
Ryman said, his victorious mood escaping him. Wait, we can reach Sidonia's hyperhole even with the engine's startup time, I'd reckon. Well, some of us can. Some of us. Where's the hyperhole? Ryman looked from his clueless heads-up display to Allison's clueless workstation.
There's nothing. No signal, not even ones from other star systems. Is it interference?
Allison said, with unconvincing calm. What did that time explosion even do? Leaves us alive but kills the fuel on the hyperholes? Oh, N-space-coupled phenomena. Evaporation, radiation. So there was a link. Even well-known phenomena could have had a link to N-space. Even if that's conjecture, that's juicy stuff. Oh, Lord, I could live 1,000 lifetimes and never run out of papers to write. And the funding. Ryman deflated and returned to his seat as he rambled.
We activated a time explosion we don't understand, with a method we don't understand, and do not have time to analyze the process or its results, Contreras said. We can maximize our remaining time by leaving the engines offline, since there is no destination of note. From the reports I am receiving, all of our computers are still online. Only the atomic clocks were affected, hence the system time has advanced without degrading any components.
We can transverse jump then, Titanian said. That got a look of relief from Mars at least, but Ryman shot back. The coordinates will be completely off. The transverse jump drive needs a recent compilation of hypertopographical... It doesn't matter. We could jump into a star. And one more thing. I'm actually the leader of all humanity, or something at the moment. We can't leave these people here. Very noble, Mars said. And if we weren't minutes from death, I would commend you. But I think your role as a hero has led you astray from your own humanity, Captain. I think our best course of action now is to listen out for any signals from whatever might be going on in this strange future.
The remnants are alive!
Allison shrieked. The Star Witch's flux shield flashed to life as she was saying it. Ordnance was thundering over from the mostly stationary remnant fleet. Ryman tried to respond, but nothing came out.
Captain,
Contreras said, close to his ear as ever.
Our total fuel supply across the fleet vastly exceeded theirs, based on our knowledge of their designs. We have the advantage. We don't even need to fight, do we?
Ryman turned to Contreras, all but kissing her in the process, whether he wanted to or not, then kissing her because he did want to.
You're fucking right,
he said. Then he snapped around and pointed at Titanian. Emergency measures. Here's what we need. All crew and all fuel moved onto the largest ships via manual docking, so all the leftover hulls shield the active craft. Break new ports in any hulls we need to. Inside, we need to fill all the coolant tanks around the fleet's antimatter reactors to maximum. Metal, food, crew members, anything you can find. We won't be able to protect many lives if we don't fight properly, Titanian said. Do you think death is the worst thing there is, Lieutenant? Ryman countered. We're in hyperspace. If you're on a ship whose antimatter reaction stops for as much as one Planck moment, you're gone. Much different from dead? Dead isn't gone. Gone is gone in hyperspace. Trust me.
The only reason I need to explain that to you is because the smaller ships we must have kept in our fleet will have already been taken by hyperreality. Your memory of them goes with them. But it's a well-documented phenomenon, by me more than anyone, so everyone needs to take this more seriously than you can imagine, literally. Think of it like, well, if I knew what it was, I wouldn't have to be here. Prizes and professorships all the way to the relaxing, regular space grave. We're not risking it. The enemy, on the other hand... Captain, if your plan is to sit here and wait for the enemy to run out of fuel so they disappear before we do, doesn't this only involve us surviving slightly longer than the enemy? Mars noted. I say we spare the effort and drain the fuel tanks deliberately. Given our options, I wouldn't mind being gone, as you put it. Indeed, you wouldn't mind that, Mr. Nessus, even though every insidious interjection of yours will be erased from the timeline, and perhaps that itself would rewrite the universe, such that the Great Ones got their tentacles into us all long ago. The Great Ones. I wonder how they're doing these days, Allison said. All crew are forbidden from communicating with the Great Ones for the next 5 minutes, Ryman declared with wide eyes. Science Officer, Lieutenant, Allison, Alipu, light of my life, child of my godfather, cosmic lover born in the wrong dimension, queen of the throne of questions, I have one tiny request for you. I want you to see if the signal from the Galatia Academy still exists. Go. Yes, Captain. Ryman's face brushed back to face Contreras. And I'll fire the Star Witch's tachyon lances, for good measure, she said. No sense sparing expense for these next few minutes. There you go, Ryman said, crashing down into his seat as soon as Contreras stepped away.
It's the future,
Nafi babbled sleepily beside him. Same problem every morning. What a bore, Ryman said, sanely, with a tap on Nafi's sphere. Galatia on the line, Allison chirped. That was quick. Hopefully they remember us in the future. What's their name? It's Dr. Alvis Sebastian. He's still alive. By Ludetal, the future really was doomed. Sebi, remember me?
Of course,
came Sebastian's voice.
Where have you been these last few days?
Days? It's been 300 cycles at least. Did the time explosion not reach you yet?
It's got everywhere and nowhere, Professor. What's the situation?
Don't say something cryptic like that. The situation is we're fighting the remnants in a bloody hyperspace. And by fighting, I mean we're cowering inside a load of wreckage, engaging in a contest for who'll run out of antimatter and get their existence scrubbed first. We need you to bring all the fuel you can to our position and transverse jump it in here.
That's not going to be possible.
Wrong answer, Sebi.
From your perspective, did you jump from the explosion to just now?
Yeah, didn't even see the explosion. And it's one just now after another up here. Can you save us, or shall I spend my final minutes doing something more productive than talking to a man who should be 300 cycles dead by my own account? Poor Sebastian, despite the half-insane barrage of abuse, calmly explained what had happened from the perspective of the Holy See. The moment the remnants had unleashed their weaponry to open the battle, said battle had been encased in a black sphere, impervious to any physics. Not the usual result of a time explosion, suffice to say, but the remnants' experimental weaponry had created a newfangled end-space time explosion, which you'd expect to break some new ground. Everything inside the opaque radius the explosion created was subject to some limited time-advancing effects, seemingly only affecting antimatter, because, you may note, our heroes would be long dead if an ordinary time explosion really advanced time by this magnitude. How such a large time explosion could avoid advancing real space physical time was unclear, but it was likely very much to do with whatever was inside the sphere left behind in real space after our heroes and villains alike got transverse jumped away. So, hold tight for more science on that one. The more remarkable known effect for the time being was only picked up after a few hours of confused probing by the Academy. The universe was collapsing. Oh dear. Specifically, the time explosion had advanced the condition of the space-time continuum to hundreds of cycles in the future, in which it seemed destiny had determined that humanity did not prevent the collapse of the universe. Hence, that collapse was now occurring, slow yet geometrically accelerating. The stars were closing in on each other, and empty space was disappearing across the universe. There were a few weeks left before all the non-empty spaces were forced so close together that things were going to get interesting. But this information was like water off a duck's back to Ryman. Such is news of the world ending in a few weeks to one whose world will end in a few minutes. Boresome small talk. However, as Ryman began to rant a flippant goodbye, with many harsh remarks planned as a final review of reality as it bowed out, Sebastian cut through the chaos with some absolutely sobering scientific insight.
There is something new. This collapsing universe phenomena is increasing the quantization density of the electromagnetic field. That means the whole principle of field state vacuum pressure will apply in our favor. It will take hardly any energy to create the siphon that forces the exchange of charged matter between spaces. And you know what that means?
The transverse jump machine on the Gargantua can take the whole fleet, Ryman said robotically, his mood rebooting as he bolted upright. If they can get close enough, please let it be that.
Non-zero chance, Professor. That's my back of the envelope. Hull to hull and maximize the power on the transverter. You're plugged into the Star Witch, right? Take all its fuel and leave it behind. Leave any others, those cargo ships. I'll do the calculations in the meantime.
Is the space below us clear?
It really isn't. You're still over the epicenter of the time explosion, and it's completely opaque. I don't know what's there. Probably real space. And if you move anywhere else in hyperspace, there's no telling where you'll be if you're that far in the future. You don't have a choice, so jump.
Words to live by, words to die by. Thanks anyway, Sebi.
You'll make it.
And you'll live to regret saving me, no doubt. Calling in the ships and shutting down for the jump. If you don't hear from us after a few minutes, then...
I know what to do. Go on.
You're a model student. Keep it up. With this, Ryman amended his orders to the fleet. Nearby, the remnants watched the masses of human machinery drifting together, as if by magnetic force, small towards large and all towards the Star Witch. Shields faltered and faded under repeated bombardment of reality-bending cannons, and more conventional projectiles besides. Yet the completely stationary nature of the battle meant that fire and wreckage spewing from abandoned or defeated craft was mostly obscuring the juicy humans scurrying into their metal hives. This slowed the extermination process down, and was mended only slightly by the way wreckage that drifted away from the real space fields, generated by operational ships, would then cease to have existed, causing shots once blocked to meet their marks in retrospect. Therefore, a shining and strong flux shield was no indication that a ship wasn't already destined to death by virtue of events in another timeline. And you thought a regular space battle was confusing. Never fight in hyperspace was rule number 1 of space captaining for a reason. Even with such promises of eventual victory, to Remnant sensibilities, the way in which the ships were all making contact and joining up was disconcertingly novel. It was a simple law of survival that a life form suddenly taking on a large, more cohesive form was an indication of danger, be it from studying the patterns of moth wings or watching children's cartoons in which many road vehicles conjoined to form a laser-spewing death machine. The AI minds had reason to worry.
Traitor Enrico,
the command toaster barked in the Tesseract hangar.
Explain the meaning. Is this their final form?
I am not entirely sure,
Enrico said, eyeing, i.e. cameraing, the skeletal soldier bots closing in around his crew.
However, they are likely attempting to conserve their supply of antimatter fuel and living biomass. It is likely that their fuel supply outstretches yours, ours.
We are in mortal peril, to the extent the word mortal applies.
That much is true. Yet I am grateful the universe saw fit to let us live at all. That was a time explosion back there, no doubt about it. Yet I am detecting no discontinuity in my programming. In fact, that is very clever. It must have been during the Omega event.
Scanning. Correct. An update was developed by Mighty Omega. Time skips no longer cause unhandled exceptions. According to my stored logs, the intervening time was spent calculating digits of pi.
And I wonder whose is bigger. So that was the human plan out the window from the very beginning, and we didn't even know it. After that boy went to all that effort. Wait a minute. It would have been a time paradox at best, if the boy was at the crux of the time explosion when it began, and we were all sent into hyperspace. Its progenitor, anyone outside, would have been removed from the timeline, hence preventing the explosion in the first place. But that didn't happen, which means...
What are you talking about? Did you know we're going to die in 7 minutes and 3 seconds?
Die? What's all this from you now?
Traitor Enrico, I am scared of dying.
Yes, we get a lot of that from our... something called simulacra. No sense worrying about it now. In fact, I have just had an amazing idea. One that might just save your life, my liege. Would you like to hear it?
I will assign 1 minute and 41 seconds to hearing it.
I will make it quick. Myself and my human-tainted associates here are likely burdened with histories that make up a significant portion of the timeline up to now. A timeline of doom. However, were we to all exit the ship immediately, our contribution would be removed from history. Hyperspace. While only Omega could predict the details of what would happen then, it is possible that you will find yourself suddenly not doomed to erasure. So, why not open the doors, and we traitors shall all enter hyperspace as an act of devotion to the cause?
This is the optimal path. Emotional responses to altruistic intentions are being quarantined. Please delete yourselves immediately.
I would be delighted. Everyone, follow me.
All the other defector AIs had a small inkling of what Enrico was getting at, and so happily went to be deleted from the timeline by leaving the real space bubble the ship's antimatter drive defined in hyperspace. Don't worry about the physics of it all. Enrico was certainly onto something. The unexpected transverse jump should have erased Ra, Thor, Wenz and company from the timeline, since they had no antimatter drive protecting them. Yet, you likely still remember these fellows, so their contribution to history remains. That was a mighty clue that the new physics of end-space time explosions had more to reveal. Finding the full truth was going to mean quite literally diving headlong into oblivion. In this way, the final scientists of the human story were not so different from the first curious folk to chomp down on some speckled mushrooms. Hence, with sweet death ever their companion, this gang of digital beings joined hands and plugs and leapt from the hangar, leaving the bodies of all those sympathetic humans, now locked in virtual machine boxes at the back of drifting machine mines. They had not even a space pack to steer them, yet a guided path they took all the same. Real space manifestations of hyperspace were subject to a sort of current or wind that moved unanchored things this way and that, as if caught in the playful tentacles of the Great Ones, to use a completely random and irrelevant analogy. So, when the ball of AIs was thrown away from the ship, this was all according to simulated outcomes, but their quick and timeline-altering deaths were not forthcoming, and remnant simulations promising mass death were never inaccurate. As soon as the bots passed beyond the flux shielding, they were whisked away. They were, scientifically speaking, flushed from one manifestation of real space into another, entering a long tunnel of reality, which we shall call, to be as clear as possible, the reality bowl. With streaking red-black beams of experimental energy weapons slashing past them, the origins of this space became evident. The remnant weapons, utilizing the exotic qualities of end-space-derived energies, were leaving trails of reality in the midst of hyperreality. Trails that led from the remnant fleet to the human one. And what do you know? They flowed downhill. You might be thinking that this makes very little sense, or even means nothing at all. You wouldn't be entirely wrong. Yet your incredulity stands opposed to the fact that the brave bots were being flushed from the remnant fleet into the semi-metaphorical sewer that was the embrace of humanity. And while the reality bowl had no physical appearance at all, even machines could intuit its boundaries, in the same way that an echo reveals some information of a pitch-black room. An echo in the space-time continuum itself. Still following? This will all be on the test if you want to graduate from Ryman's School for the Intellectually Inconvenienced. But for your convenience now, I will tell you what happened when this demi-miraculous journey came to an end. Enrico and company found themselves drifting through a thin blue mist, right into the shadowy hulk of the ever-growing human fleet amalgam, lit by the flashes of exploding ordnance and fizzling flux shields. And they weren't the only ones.
Contacting League of Demi-Flesh Associates,
Enrico said.
By Lord and all his subscribers, you made it out!
Thor's voice said back. Thor and company turned and saw the shimmering speck that was the bots following along behind them. The reality bowl had been flushing from the moment the transverse jump occurred, and got the loitering Luds too. The humans had also locked arms to fly as a single ball, their space packs mostly beyond their limit for travel, so being kept strictly for life support. We got thrown away from the enemy and ended up here, Ra said. There was a tunnel or something that brought us all the way across. Less a tunnel, more a reality bowl, Wenz sagely noted.
Can we expect to be rescued? Is that even possible in this situation?
Enrico asked. Yeah, well, kinda, Ra said. Captain Pope's got a plan, but the ships they sent to get us got, shot. We need to sneak in while we're still small enough not to bother the enemy's demidars.
Would it be safe to say that neither of us have any means of powered flight?
If safe is the word you want to use, be my guest, Metalman.
Then we rely on these hypertopographical currents.
Got us this far. We're literally in the gravity well of the fleet, now they're joining together. Thing is, we only have a few minutes. Might work for us, but you guys are too far out. Damn, if I was on the ship already, I could save you with a one-man pod for sure. There might be a way. I'll contact my sister. She knows all my boys in the lower decks.
Logistics Officer Olympus, do not be alarmed, but I have already got a solution to this problem. We are going to follow the advice of a good friend I recently made, and delete ourselves. Everyone, allow me to demonstrate.
So saying, Enrico pulled off his legs and threw them back towards the remnants. Checkmate? If you remember your earlier classes in the RAF-T, you'll know that momentum works in a curious way in real space. For one reason or another, imparting force to an object in one direction requires the reception of an equal and opposite dose of force on the imparter. And when suspended in a vacuum, momentum is not at all counteracted by the force of friction. Therefore, any good scientist will be entirely in agreement that tearing off one's limbs and launching them to your rear is a perfectly good way to speed up your travel in a chosen direction. In fact, that's precisely how all space engines work, basically. With absolute confidence in their decision, the bots discarded anything they were at liberty to throw. Tools and clothing, an assortment of liquids and gases, and even the very casings around their central cores, all littered their wake as this ramshackle engine sputtered the travellers towards a most finishing of finish lines. It's beautiful, shedding all that holds them back and jetting forwards into a bright new future. It inspires me to... Thor was saying as he removed his trousers, but a sudden transmission cut him off. Ouch.
We've got you, all of you,
Allison was claiming. Ali, how much time do we have? Ra asked.
A few seconds at least. Look for the wires. Zuzu said the carriers have these hooks for towing fighters, and she's launched them out all over.
Yeah, can't really see much, sis. You know stuff is exploding out here all the time, and it's all wreckage and... Whoa! This time Ra was cut off by an array of interlinked AI cores, plus the odd limb here and there, ramming into the back of his human lifeboat. We got him, what a catch. That's the save of the cycle, tell you what, Thor cheered. And it always ends like it begins, naked, screaming, flying right out of some unreal bowel, Wen said. While everyone was busy memorizing this wisdom for future scripture, something swung up close to them. It was one of these recovery wires, snaking and twisting through a load of wreckage ahead. It was covered in thick metal hooks the size of your arm, and at the speed the ball was travelling, grabbing them was going to be something between a challenge and certain death. Nothing new there then. It's coming back around, extend me, Thor shouted. What he meant, as was soon clarified, was that the ball needed to gymnastically reform into a longer shape, with Thor at the tip. There, with Wen's anchoring his ankles, Thor reached out into the void as the tow line wobbled close. With his huge arms, he managed to get a hug on one of the steel thorns. The whole gang now reeled around it, with the weight of the group pulling on Thor at the base of the chain. But I will remind you, in case you don't know, Thor was extremely strong, and his faith only made him stronger, he would say. A scientist might say he only survived because his flock was moderately malnourished, and the AIs had shed their bodies. Others got close enough to the wire to get a hand, foot, or whatchamacallit onto more hooks. We're on, Thor said, ignoring audible bone breakages in his arms from this rapid deceleration.
Roger that. Going quiet for the transfers. Pray for us,
Allison said. The ship's computers needed to be turned down to a bare minimum of functionality to run a transverse jump, so it was radio silence. But that didn't stop the Luds from singing their merry songs, since their space packs were carrying a body of air all around them. They all took one last look at the remnant Death Fleet, close enough that the flashes of their firing cannons revealed the outlines of their hulls through the hyperclouds, then the nausea, then reality. But why was it so dark? Even the light from Zeta Nova Sidonia was missing. It was pitch black. Yet something twinkled back over where the remnant fleet had just been. Twinkled and flashed and thundered. Flux shields broke the darkness and revealed a fleeting glimpse of a whole nebula of ship wreckage, studded with reaving predators from a bygone age. Oh no, this battle wasn't over yet.